Good morning, Life Point. Stand and worship with us.
Amazed in the presence of Jesus the Nazarene, and wonder how he could love me, a sinner condemned, unclean. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song will ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. My sins and my sorrows, made them his very own. Born to Calvary, suffered and died alone. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be. How marvelous, how wonderful is my Savior's love forever. I'll sing your praise, Jesus risen King. Oh my God, I stand amazed that you love me. With the ransomed in glory, his face I at last shall see. It will be my joy through the ages to sing of his love for me. How marvelous, how wonderful, and my song shall
have all this world. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Oh, but give me Jesus.
Here I am, down on my knees again, surrendering all, surrendering all. Find me here, Lord, as you draw me near, desperate for you, desperate for you. Let me hear you. Y'all sing it. I surrender. Drench my soul as mercy and grace on. Y'all sing it. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more.
All right, good morning. Welcome to Life Points. You can be seated. We are so glad that you are here with us this morning. If you are joining us online, we are so glad that you joined with us online. If you are here in these seats, we are particularly glad that you are here. If you are a first-time guest, we are absolutely stoked that you are here. So can we give a round of applause to our first-time guests? Everything we do with you in mind. So if you are a first-time guest, what I would like you to do is somewhere in your seat right there around you is a card. If you will, just take that card and fill that out with as much information as you are comfortable sharing. And what you can do is after this gathering, you can go out this door and go to your left, and Matt and Q and Todd will be right out here. And they just want to meet you, hear your name, get to know you just a little bit. And what they'll do is they will trade that card with you for a gift just for coming here and joining us this morning. So make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. Hey, really quick, I want to go over 2 announcements with you this morning. The first one is the Maker's Child is May 12th. That's this Friday, this coming Friday. And if you're in any way interested in being involved in that, it is an awesome opportunity. If you want to get involved with setup, breakdown, or security, or you want to be paired with a child at the event, what you need to do if you're interested in any way is see Tammy in the next step area right outside these doors after this gathering, and she will get you hooked up. I know Selena still needs volunteers for that this Friday. Also, one more announcement. We are getting ready for our LP summer internship. That is a summer internship that is paid. So if you are 16 years old through 22 years old, or you know someone in that age range and they're interested in interning here at Life Point, we have several different tracks that they can go through. They can go through youth, music ministry, and then several other ones as well. So if you know someone interested in that, I will be at the next step area afterwards to give more details about that. So don't miss that. So what we're about to do is we're about to take a break, and then at the end of this gathering, we will be taking up an offering. And so if you're a first-time guest, we don't want you to feel obligated to give. That's mostly for those of us who have been around here at Life Point for a while. But there will be people with buckets at the doors, or you can give at the kiosks out in the hall, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I want you to find 3 people that you might not know very well and give them a high five, okay? Ready, set, go.
All right, well, good morning, Life Point. My name is Quentin, but most people just call me Q. I'm one of the pastors here. And before I hop in too much of this, I want to really reiterate the whole idea. I want to reiterate two things. Number one, I just want to ask that you would apologize. I just want to ask you to forgive Clay. We did take him from a fairly traditional church. That's why he says things like music ministry. We don't necessarily have a music ministry here. We have a worship team, a worship arts team. But, he's getting there. He's getting there. We're getting him there. But, some of you may have understood music ministry, and some of you may have been like, what is our music ministry? So we're teaching him. He's young, moldable. He's going to get there. Secondly is we're talking about our core values, and I can't help but just kind of reiterate the fact that if you're not got anything going on Friday night, what a great night to come work with Maker's Child here at Life Point. I'll just go ahead and reveal the core value we're talking about is this idea of loving radically. And man, sometimes I know you may be trying to find a space or a place that you can do that. Well, Friday night would be an amazing time for you to come and love radically. You're going to love in multiple ways. If you come here and serve these special need kids, then you're going to be loving their parents who are loving these kids all the time. You're going to give them a break, go get a date, hang out. You're going to be loving those kids and just be able to spend time with them and show them how much value they have. And it's so incredible. And if you come on Friday night and you don't like it, then I would be floored. It's such an amazing time. It'll do something for you too. So after this is over, if you don't have anything going on Friday night, go out there, sign up to be at Maker's Child. It'll be an amazing opportunity for you to love radically, a part of our community. So that's what we're talking about, is love radically, and we believe that if you love radically, it helps us live life to the full. Now, I want to kind of start with this idea about love, because love's an interesting thing. I'll never forget, I do this thing still, and you may be like, oh man, you're one of those dads, but from time to time, I'll ask my kids for their device, whatever it may be, whether it be a phone, iPod, iPad, I can't keep up with all of them. I'll ask for their device, and I will look at their text, all right? Now you're like, oh, gosh, you're that guy. But I want to see what's going on. And I will never forget, this was years ago, the first time that when I was looking at my daughter's text messages, where she said to a guy, I love you. There was something in my gut. I think it was hate for somebody I'd never met before in my life. I didn't think that could happen. But as a dad, this is my first girl. I'm like, my baby, I'm like, I want to be the only guy she's saying I love you to, not some snot-nosed, preteen ragamuffin. Like, that's not what I want her saying I love you to. And he said right back to her, when she said I love you, he texts right back, I love you too. And I threw up a little bit in the back of my throat. As I continued to read, and she said, oh, I love you more. I'm like, oh no, this is done. We're done. And I remember sitting her down and having this very distinct conversation that I had actually had as a youth minister with students before, saying, I don't think you understand what the word love means. And if I'm completely honest, if I could talk to culture today, I don't know how you do that, but just talk to all of culture, and culture came to hang out with me and I could talk to it. I think what I would want to say more than anything to culture is, you don't understand what love is. Because we have watered it down and twisted it up, and we just made it something our own designs, and we use it. We've used it to create division. We've used it to create platforms. We've used it to solidify our positions. We've used it to try to make ourselves have validation. We've just used love for all these things that it interestingly wasn't really supposed to be about. And what's happened culturally is we swing. We take these huge swings. And in church, we've seen this, where we've taken these huge swings when it comes to love, right? We know, like the church knows, we're supposed to love people, right? We've talked about how Jesus' commandment is love each other as I've loved you, right? So we know that Jesus' commandment at the end of the Gospels is that. We know we're supposed to love. But I was trying to figure out what that looks like. It's been a whole other story. Like some people will swing all the way to one side and go, well, what that means is we just don't judge anyone. Everybody just comes. It doesn't matter what you do or who you are. We're all just going to love you, embrace you. We're going to get a campfire and some s'mores and sing Kumbaya, and everybody's welcome at the circle. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to change anything in your life. You don't have to be anything different. We're just all love, like love, good vibes, good feelings, right? And the other end is we use love to as a battle. It's like our shield for battle. Like, oh no, because I love, I'm going to tell you everything that's wrong about you. I'm going to tell you everything you need to change. We've drawn political lines. We've drawn social lines based on love. Like we just want to, our love demands I point all this stuff out and tell you what's wrong with you, because if I don't really love you. So now I got to tell you where all you're wrong. And we start throwing love out there like this rock that we're trying to hit people with. Trying to hit them with the love rock, and people just dodging it. And as in most things, I think the truth of how we're supposed to love is somewhere in between those. So, when we have a hard time figuring out what something's supposed to look like, as Christians, a very good thing for us to do, for those of us in here who follow Jesus, is to look at what Jesus did in his Gospels and see some example of maybe what he showed us love could and should look like. And so that's what I want to do this morning, is look at a story that many of you have heard and I perhaps have even talked about before, and kind of glean from it where on this pendulum of love, should our love as Christians really look like. So we're going to be in John chapter 8. I'm going to start with verse 2. It says, early in the morning, he came again to the temple, and all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. Love this. Jesus is talking about Jesus. Early in the morning, Jesus comes to the temple. Everybody comes around. They're just going to sit down, hang out with Jesus, and he's going to begin to teach them. This is a normal Jesus thing. We see this happen a lot. All right, they're sitting around, Jesus telling some stories. I don't know what he's teaching. Maybe he's teaching some stuff about Sermon on the Mount, kind of, rehashing some of that. I don't know. He could be teaching whatever, but we know he's teaching at this moment. And it says, the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in their midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? And these guys, this is a moment they're trying to trap him. The fact that he's early in the morning teaching these people, it has gotten underneath the scribes and the Pharisees' skin. They did not like the message that Jesus was teaching. They did not like the claims that Jesus was making about himself. And so in this moment, they're trying to trap him. They're trying to put him in a no-win situation. They either want to, A, show that he doesn't hold on to truth, that he doesn't go by the law, or B, show that he's unloving and doesn't really have all this grace he's talking about. I mean, this is what they're doing. And by the way, it's a good trap. This isn't a bad trap. This is a good trap they set. It's a really good one. They set this up so that Jesus has to answer, and in it, they're wanting him to lose some of his authority, to lose some of his position, and to lose some of his followers. That's the hope for the scribes and the Pharisees in this moment. Now, what they don't realize is that Jesus is about to give us a master edition lesson on what love looks like. There's no care of love for this woman by these scribes and Pharisees. She is an object lesson to them in the moment. She is a tool in which they're going to entrap Jesus. It's not a place where they're trying to correct her or love her, and Jesus is going to be very clear in pointing this out. And can you imagine some of the different positions here? Could you imagine this woman? It's early in the morning. She got drug out to this place, probably drug out of some bed somewhere with some guy she shouldn't have been sleeping with. She gets drug out of that bed, brought here, and thrown in front of this crowd. And the crowd's got all kinds. It's got some older guys, it's got some younger guys, and you could just see the zealous young scribe or the zealous young Pharisee who's all excited about, we're about to really damage this thing that this false teachers do, and they don't think Jesus is teaching the right thing, just kind of excited about seeing the moment. Everybody's already probably picked up a rock and holding it as they get ready to say what they're going to say. And the spokesman steps out, the spokesman of this group, and calls Jesus on this, says, hey, what do you say we do, Jesus? What do you say? Now, in the moment, Jesus could give a really long, eloquent speech. I'm sure he could have figured it out. But again, I think he's giving us a lesson on love. So it says they said this to test him, that they may have some charge to bring against him. And I love this. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. This is one of my favorite pictures. I mean, this is a tense moment. Like, everybody's kind of like, oh, we're going to know what's going on. This lady just got drugged out of this bed. Like, this is crazy. These people around, there's rocks in their hands, and they're like asking this really intense question. Everybody's kind of leaning forward, seeing what Jesus is going to say. And Jesus just kneels down and begins writing in the sand. And we don't get any inkling to what he was writing on the sand. Now, I remember when I was young and this being taught. This was like, mid-90s. This was being taught. And I remember some preacher, minister, I don't know who it was, but I remember him saying, and I totally bought into this, saying that Jesus drew that Jesus fish. You remember what I'm talking about? And I was like, oh yeah, he created the mark of it. And then at the same time, which was crazy that this was being taught, you couldn't find a car on Sand Mountain that didn't have a Jesus fish on it, right? And I'm like, this may be true, or this may be really good marketing. I don't know what was going on here. We don't know if it was that. We don't know if he was writing something, if he was writing a scripture from Old Testament. We don't know if he was just kneeling down and doodling in the sand. He might have been putting a smiley face on. I don't know. But what we do know is he paused the moment. Can I tell you, when we're trying to figure out what love really looks like, one of the best things we can do in a moment is slow down. We live in a culture that speeds us up so much that sometimes we don't have time to love people radically because we're not willing to slow down to be able to love them radically, to figure out what it looks like. We're just trying to fix an issue in a moment, not really try to figure out how to love someone radically. And Jesus slows the moment down here, and that is really important. I have to give this. Some of you guys may have heard Charles Stanley died here recently, and they had his funeral. And Charles Stanley is he wrote a bunch of books. He was pastor at First Baptist in Atlanta. He's been a huge kind of spiritual leader in the Christian world for a long time. Oddly enough, when I was in Oregon, my boss, his name was Jack Tripp, he lived in Boston, had a house in the Hamptons, CEO of 2 Fortune 500 companies. In his mid-50s one day, he's watching TV at night, feeling unfulfilled in his life, like millionaire and not feeling good about it. And he happened to turn on Charles Stanley, and he gave his life to Jesus. That guy, Jack, when I worked for him, when he got the job at the Eugene Mission, Oregon. 3 months, he hired me. And I remember going to Jack and being like, hey, there's some people in the day room. They're talking about how if we don't take care of this one situation, they're going to not be here, and they're going to go tell everybody how bad we are, and it's going to be bad. And I'd go into Jack with all these problems. For the first year, I'd go in with the problem, and Jack every time would say this to me. He'd say, "Hey, yeah, Q, that's why don't we just pray about that for 24 hours?" And I'd be like, "What? We gotta fix this. This is critical. What are we going to do?" And he'd go, "No, we're going to pray for 24 hours. And so I'd go back and I would pray that he would hurry up and make a decision, but he wouldn't. For 24 hours, he would just let it sit. And here's the crazy thing. 90% of the time in 24 hours, the problem resolved itself. The solution became clear. The pathway opened. See, sometimes we don't love people well because we're just trying to fix it in the moment. We don't slow things down and give enough time to really figure out what that person needs in that moment. And we can be slower. We need to be more intentional when it comes to love people radically. When you got people in your life that are hurting, you may not know the exact right thing to do in the moment. Just settle there, be there. Let the situation simmer. So he slows this critical moment down for a second. And then, says they continued to ask him, I love that. They didn't just let him sit there and write. It's Hey, Jesus, what do we do? I don't know how they said it. Hey, what are you, they just got impatient with him. So he stood up and he said to them, let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And then once more, he bent down and wrote on the ground. And this statement is so amazing. You want to talk about radical love? Listen to what Jesus is saying here. In no way is he saying she's innocent of what they're claiming. In no way has he said it's okay what she's done. But he has now brought everyone on her level. See, Jesus bends down. I imagine this lady might have been down on the ground, not kind of seeing what's going on. She thinks she's going to be stoned. Jesus bends down. And now he brings everybody on her level. You say, how does he do that, Q? Because she had messed up. It was very clear. But instead of Jesus just giving a simple answer, he says, look, whoever hasn't messed up, whoever hasn't sinned, you go ahead and throw the first stone. And I can imagine, I don't know, like when we love radically, this has got to be something that happens inside of us because people come in and they can be doing like really bad things. They could be going through really bad situations. And let me tell you, as being a pastor of a church for a long time, there's been people come in the door that have done some really horrible things. We've had people that have came in here that were on death row for murder. We've had people that have done had a lot of horrible things go on and decisions made in their life, right? And it's really easy to just dismiss that person or go, yeah, they deserve whatever, right? Justice. But if you can stop and you can think about your sins, what it does is it allows you to be brought on that person's level. This is what it looks like in my head. This is my head. My head's a weird place. You don't want to live there. But in my head, this is what it looks like. You ever seen those old movies where they got that projector that has the slides in it that goes around and it goes and a new one pops up? Like anytime I'm with somebody that I think this is a horrible person, I try to go to my head and I'm just sitting there with that slide thing going, oh yeah, you're bad too. And it just reminds me of all the bad things I've done. And it says this is what happened. Look, he tells them to throw it and he bends down and look what happens right here. It says when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones. The older ones had a lot more slideshows to go through. It didn't take them long to realize, you know what? I'm not going to be the guy that says I'm perfect. I'm not going to be the guy that says I've never messed up. I'm not going to be the one that throws that stone. It says they just begin to go away one by one. And at the end, Jesus is left alone with the woman standing before him. Man, when we're talking about how to radically love people in our lives, you got to realize how radically we've been loved. It's the basis of all of it. When we know our own sinfulness and we know how we've messed up and what Jesus has done for us, it allows us to love people on the level that Jesus desires for us to. It allows for us not to just try to check off a mark that we've helped somebody, but to really realize this person's hurting, and because that love changed us, maybe we can love them in a way that they would experience that same love that only can come from Jesus. I mean, that love changed everything for us. And that love, talk about something radical. The love of Jesus is what connected us into a relationship with God. How radical is that? How radical is it that Jesus, even though the Bible says while we were yet sinners, that he died for us. Not like he didn't die for the very best of you, right? He died for the worst of us while we were in our worst. When the worst slide on the slideshow come up on the screen, that person Jesus still died for. Like Jesus knew that you were going to do that, knew you were going to be that person, and he died for that person. He died for us in our selfishness and our pride. He died for us in our addiction and our struggles. He died for us. And so when it comes to a moment when we try to figure out why should we radically love somebody, it's because of that love for Jesus. In fact, John says it in 1 John. He says, we love because Jesus first loved us. That love should motivate us to radically love others. And he is bringing it up in their mind how they're not perfect. I try to think what all those folks that walked away that day thought as they went home. I wonder if they wished to know someone could love them in the midst of their sin. I wonder if they questioned that Old Testament law. They knew they were sinners. They knew they were messed up. But I wonder if they realized the answer wasn't ever going to come from them trying to be good enough. But it was going to take radical love to transform their life. But let me get to the lesson that I think this is all leading to, and where Jesus really is going to just drive this home. It's when he's just alone with this lady. And it says it's just him and this lady. I guess the people who were listen to him teach, when the Pharisees and the scribes came, they probably scattered, we're not getting involved in this, I'm out, and it's just Jesus and this lady hanging out. And Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" See, she came with this expectation of condemnation. The whole time she's taken out there, she's expecting condemnation. She's expecting judgment. She's expecting to be thrown under the bus, made fun of, and ultimately to be stoned. That's her expectation. And some of my fear is that people today in our culture who have messed up, their expectation of the church is that they're going to be condemned by us. That we're going to throw them under the bus, throw them away, say they're not good enough, say that, whatever, it's just, you're condemned by us. I'm afraid some people today who are looking for radical love have the same expectation. In fact, I have a really amazing job I get to do a couple days a week at the high school. And my title is student advocate, and students just come and I help them with whatever. I just talk with students, do whatever. Look, they know who I am. They know that I pastor a church. They know kind of my beliefs. They know my belief system. It's not a secret to them. And from time to time, students will come in there and they'll try to tell me something about their life, almost in expectation that because of who I am, there's going to be instant condemnation come on them. One of my favorites is these two students came in one time, and they're talking, and I talked with them before because they were dealing with some different things, and so we're talking again, and they said, "We want to tell you something, but we know you're going to really not like what we tell you," which is a great way to start a conversation, right? You're like, "Oh," for me, I'm just excited now. I'm like, "Ooh, this is going to be fun," and they say, "Well, we're witches." I go, "Oh." So my next statement was this: "What kind of witches are you?" And what belief system of witchery do you follow? Of witchcraft do you follow? And we began to have a conversation. But their expectation in that moment was for me to just throw them away, discount them, push them, be done. Unbeknownst to them, I've done my homework and I've studied things, and regardless, I kept them in my office. The condemnation did not come to them in that moment. I didn't say, as me and Matt were going to a church planting school one time. It's the funniest thing I've ever heard on the radio, and the scariest thing I've ever heard on the radio. I'm not making this. You guys will think I'm making this up. We're going to church planting school. This is back year 1 of Life Point, and we're riding over there. He's driving, and sometimes we just turn on AM radios to listen to preachers on AM stations, because I know it's not good, but sometimes you just hear some of the most amazing things on there that you never think you'd hear. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's way out there. And today, it was way out there that day, all right? We turn on there, and as we turn on, this is what we hear. We hear this preacher preaching at a high level of intensity, saying, "And if you find a witch, you need to drag her out in the street, and you need to stone her." And then it goes, oh gosh, I'm going to mess it up. It goes, what was it, Matt? What was it? Oh, yeah, it goes, we're off to see the witch. The wonderful witch is dead, or something like that. It's literally what they sound. This is a preaching message. I said, "Matt, did they just say to drag people out in the street and stone them?" This was 15 years ago. I was like, wow, no wonder people expect condemnation. This wasn't like back 150 years ago. This was 15 years ago on the radio. Live. It was live. Because if it wasn't live, it wasn't making it again. I'm telling you, it was live. And we heard it. And that's what those students probably expected, honestly. And that's what this lady expected, honestly. And Jesus says, no one condemned you. And she says, no one, Lord. And Jesus said, neither do I condemn you. Go. From now on, sin no more. And this sentence wraps up, I think, what love looks like. There's an absence of condemnation, but an inspiration to be more. A pulling and a pushing to Jesus. A pulling to a life that's more than what you're stuck into. See, love doesn't just sign off and say any sin's okay, we're not going to condemn you. It says what love says is that you're not unreachable and you're not untouchable. And that we can hug you no matter where you are or what your life is or what your lifestyle is. But we also believe there's more for you. This is radical love. Where you love someone fully and at the same time you're saying, but there is more to come. There is more to life than what you got right now. And there's no easy way to know how to maneuver through that. Again, Jesus is the master in this moment. I wish we could all do it as great as he can. But if we can slow down and think through, how do we love someone in such a way that they don't feel condemnation but connection, but at the same time don't feel comfortable where they're at but feel pushed to be where they need to be? How do we love that way? That is radical love. That's what the love that the church should be giving to the world around us. I tried to do that with those two witches. And they came back. And one of them, about 9 months later, asked me a question. I just would talk with them at times and check in on them and check in on their grades, see how their grades were going. And when I check on their grades, I wouldn't say like this, well, you know what? If you prayed to Jesus today, maybe you'd have a better grade. I didn't say that, you know. I would just live my life and tell them and say, hey, I think, they ask me questions like, well, we get our power from praying to the moon or whatever, And I would say, well, my cool thing is that even when I don't feel like I have power, what Paul wrote in one of the letters that I really like is that he said, it's in my weakness, Christ's strength is made perfect. And so, like, Jesus kind of gives me strength even when I don't have strength. I would just tell them, I wasn't condemning them, I'm just sharing, I think there's more maybe to what's going on, right? And 9 months later, after that first time they came in and told me that, they came in and one of them looked at me and said, hey, can I ask you a question? I go, absolutely. And I said, would you tell me about the Jesus that you serve? And then I can say whatever I want to. And I did. There's a hunger for radical love that will birth something in people that is so good, that's so real, that's so genuine. We got to live that way. We got to live full of radical love. And it's been part of LifePoint's DNA from the very beginning. We used to use a statement all the time that said, love people when they least expect it and least deserve it. Just love people. Surprise them with the love that Jesus has loved us with. And that's the call. If you want to know something you could remember to help you maybe in making these decisions correctly, it would be this. To ask this question of yourself. What does love require of me? In whatever situation it is, with a neighbor, with a friend, what does love require of you? See, for us, when we started LifePoint years ago, there was a huge epidemic going on. There was a documentary released called Meth Mountain. It was all about the methamphetamine issue that was going on in the Sand Mountain area. There was just tons of drugs, tons of addiction, and there was no real church that was stepping into that gap trying to love people. And we didn't really know what to do, but we found some people who did. They trained us, and we decided right from the beginning when we planned this church that we were going to love people when they least expect it and least deserve it. We were going to do something for those who are struggling with addiction issues. We were going to step in that gap. We were not going to condemn those who were using meth, because that's what we had done for so long. We'd said, you know what, if you're an addict, go get clean and then you can come to church. We're going to say, no, come to church and we're going to trust the Lord can get you clean. We're going to bring you in, love you. You have a seat at the table. There's no condemnation. Come, be with us, and then we're going to believe there's something more, right? Neither do I condemn you. You can be here, but go and don't keep using drugs because there's more to life than that. It's what Jesus did, right? That's the picture of what Jesus did. And so for the last, 15, 16 years, we've just seen so much amazing ministry done through Celebrate Recovery. It is who we are. It is a picture of how I think we should live on the daily. So I wanted you to see the three guys who are helping lead Celebrate Recovery right now and hear a little bit of their story and how radical love makes an impact on the weekly with them. I'm going to let's see this video, and then after we're going to sing a song, and if you want to pray, you can. Just worship, you can. But my challenge to you is be inspired. Man, our core value, love radically, love radically, love radically, love radically. Do that. Find those opportunities and love people in a way that doesn't condemn them, but inspires them to be like Jesus. All right, y'all check this out.
My name's Wes Kittle. I started coming to Life Point about 6 years ago. Started attending Life Point because, of course, I had to come to Celebrate Recovery because I'd gotten in a little bit of trouble. So I started coming to Celebrate Recovery and then came into the Sunday morning service and started then.
I'm Ricky Kelly. Started coming to Life Point in 2010. Started attending Celebrate Recovery was the reason I was coming, and been here ever since.
My name's Michael Baker. I am a person in long-term recovery. I was court-ordered to come. Me coming to Celebrate Recovery to get the stamps is really, in my mind, this was just going to last a year and I was going to go back to doing what I did. But I fell in love with the church first and then fell in love with the Lord. And that changes everything. And when we love one another, and we do, everybody loves very well here. And the respect that we have for each other, I couldn't imagine myself going somewhere else.
When I started coming to Celebrate Recovery, I had to come to get stamps. And then I started helping, and it gave me a purpose, something that I could give back because I had took from society for so long. I was able to give back and help and love on people and maybe help people that had went down the same path that I went down.
Celebrate Recovery for me was I grew up in church. I've been in church all my life, and when I had a drug and alcohol problem, I felt like a complete failure and felt like that God was kind of through with me and that I didn't have a purpose. And I started attending Celebrate Recovery here and found my purpose, found what God had called me to do, and found a renewed spirit and strength in Him. Well, Celebrate Recovery is any hurt, habit, hang up. Like I said, most people think that Celebrate Recovery is just for drug addiction, alcohol, and it's not. It's so much more. It's the greatest program as far as discipleship that I've ever been a part of, where we come and we get what's called a sponsor and accountability partners, and those are people around us that are there to lift us up, to help us to walk through this thing called life together. And there's all kinds of hurts, habits, hang-ups that we all carry around with us. And we all the time, we feel the shame of like, I'm all alone. I'm the only person that feels the way that I do. And there's a common bond, a common connection with people when you're able to come in and be truthful and be honest. And there's no mask, there's no putting up a front on anybody. We come in and we just be really honest with each other. And we tell how our day went, how things are just real in our life. And it just takes that mask off and allows us to be who we are. And there's a connection that we can all seem to get to better together when we can admit our failures and faults, and we can grow together and get better.
I think Celebrate Recovery loves radically because for me, that's just the thing that I do. I love to love on people and love to serve that person or serve people that come in. It helps me. I get the blessing out of it. I know people come to get help or change their life when they come to Celebrate Recovery, but in turn, it blesses me to be able to help that person that comes in.
Volunteering and giving back and serving others to me is exactly like being like Christ. That's exactly who Jesus was, and is getting in there and serving and helping, and especially those that society has said are the least of these. Society has kind of said are downtrodden and outcast or whatever that society says, and it's an ability or time to come in and to just serve and love on others that are at the lowest point in their life. They're at a point where they think that there's no hope, there's hopelessness, there's nothing that can be done to help them. And it's availability to come in and just love and just say, hey, I'm here for you. I love you. No strings attached. And just being there for somebody else, just like Jesus was.
thank everybody for joining us here this morning. Quick reminders for anybody bringing baby bottles. Next Sunday will be the last Sunday to turn those in. As you guys leave out this morning, there are buckets for offerings in the kiosk out front, or you can do that online. We hope everybody has a fantastic week this week. We love you all, and there is nothing you can do about it.